You go on a first date with someone. What habit or characteristic is a deal breaker? I went on a date with a girl. This date was a disaster. She got food in her hair and all over the place. She wouldn't get off her phone. And she stabbed herself in the cheek with her fork because she wasn't paying attention. Here is a great story. First date in college. I drive a truck and live in a city. So spots are tight. This spot is particularly tight. So I say, this is a tight spot, so watch your door when you open it. Girl, are you telling me how to open my door? Doesn't pay basic attention and slams the door into the other car. Repeatedly interrupting me when I'm talking. Especially when I'm answering a question they asked. It tells me they're not actually engaged in what I'm saying. I know a girl who asks every guy she goes on a date with what his credit score is. She wants to make sure they're financially stable. Also, she's 23 and doesn't know how to pump gas. Does she offer an L when it's above 730? Self-deprecating to the point where everything needs to be somehow connected in a negative way back to yourself. Like literally everything. While chatting it's even more obvious. Sad faces all the time. I'm dumb. I don't deserve what I've achieved, etc. If they are hard to talk to. Might not make them a bad person. But obviously there is no chemistry if all I get are one-word answers where they also don't reciprocate questions. So you're a teacher, right? Yep. Dot. Well, that's cool. What grade? Second. Dot. Or what a great age. That's like the perfect time cause kids still kind of like school. A hug. Dot. Check please. Being a know-it-all. I had lunch with someone who called the table salt sodium chloride and used the bread as a way to tell me everything he knew about complex carbohydrates, some of which wasn't even correct, and their connections to evolutionary theory. SODIUMCHLORIDE. Getting so drunk on the first date that you can't figure out Uber and I have to drive you home. No. You can't stay on my couch. I don't know you. Too much discussion about money. Not a date. But first time meeting my current GF's friends. The one's first question to me was, so what do you do for a living? How much do you make? Full stop. I've never forgotten it and haven't cared for her since that moment. When she puts her smoke out in her baked potato. Someone who doesn't ask about me. It shows that they don't actually care. On their phone the whole time. If you can't disconnect for an hour or so to engage with me, then it's not going to work. Right. I'm on a date as I'm reading this entire thread and I can't believe how much of it I agree with. This bitch keeps tutting and clearing her throat loudly and I don't know why. Constantly talking about their exes. They talk over me and spend the conversation giving me unsolicited advice about how to live my life. Edit. I feel like I need to specify that I was thinking of one specific first date that did not become a second date when I answered this. Lol. The guy didn't like that I had dyed my hair blonde at the bottom and spent a lot of the date telling me about the dangers of bleaching your hair and how I should learn to make better choices. I just wanted to have a good dinner, man. The amount of guys who think negging is a good flirting technique is ridiculous. Contrary to what you read on WikiHow. Insulting a girl doesn't make her want to impress you. It just makes her realize you're a dick. One guy I matched with on Tinder asked me for my Snapchat and when I gave it to him he said, "Oh, I don't want it. I'm not attracted. Wouldn't want to go on a date or anything disgusting like that." He was trying to flirt but it was an instant turn off. I'm not here to be insulted or put down and being rude isn't cute. I was once set up to go on a blind date with this girl. We were given each other's email addresses and so I hit her up. We exchanged a few pleasantries. Then set up a date time to finally meet. The day of. I get an email from her in the morning with an attachment. I open up the attachment and there is a questionnaire with like 25-30 questions on it. She requested I kindly fill out the questionnaire before we meet. I quickly reviewed the questions before sending her a reply saying that it's probably best we don't meet. I don't know what characteristic she embodied, but I'd say that was a deal breaker. I was on a double date with this one girl. She seemed really cool and I was having fun on the date. Then she stuck her pinky in her ear to scratch and pulled out some earwax. That was a little gross. But then she ate the earwax. I decided right then to not go on a second date. Spending the whole time on their phone. The type of guy who needs to flirt with the waitress or just be heavy. I've seen being rude to wait staff a dozen times in here. Are that many people rude to waiters? Lying. Even. If not especially. About small things. I was once told that someone had gone down a hill on their bike so fast a speed camera clocked them at 234 miles per hour. Ignoring that, that's faster than the world record on a bike. Why? Why are you making this up? Lying about their appearance. Very specific up example, guess which one? But you see their pictures. They look nice and then they are different in person. As a rule. If they have dog ears, a butterfly halo, or are puking a rainbow, what you see isn't what you'll get. Zero opinions on anything. If I'm going to date someone, I want some sort of brains or passion going on up there. One of my best friends casually began to date one of my ex-girlfriend's friends. He was really starting to like her and took her out on consistent dates. A few sleepovers, etc. My ex-girlfriend told me this girl was texting her about her date with my friend later that night. My ex asked her if she was into him as much as he was. Her little response was no. But free food is free food. I was hurt for him. Devastated. I didn't want him to feel what I felt and I wasn't even the one dating her. I took my friend, roommate at the time also, aside that afternoon and asked him to please delete her number and never talk to her again. I didn't say why. I just asked him to trust me and to please stop seeing her. It's for the honest best. Knowing me for years and years. He politely accepted my request and deleted her. Without question. He knew I knew something and understood I was helping him avoid emotional pain and disappointment. He is too nice of an individual to experience that. Trust goes a long way. Hygiene. In general. Edit. Yes. You guys. Good. Bad. Doesn't matter. If you got hygiene. I ain't doing IT. I don't hate people who smoke particularly, but my parents smoked so much that I promised myself to never date someone who smoked. If all they talk about is how bad all their exes are. Semicolon. If all your exes are psycho. The chances are the problem is you. If you meet an asshole in the morning. You met an asshole. If you meet assholes all day. You're the asshole. They only want to talk about themselves. I once had a 2-hour blind date. By the end, I knew everything about this girl. I knew all of her cats by name. And what their favorite movies were. Asterisk. She asked me literally nothing. And just kept jumping from topic to topic. At the end of the date, she wanted to trade numbers. And I couldn't help but ask what's my name? And she didn't know. So I just paid for my meal and left. Oh. I have another. If a person tells you they are in love with you after one day together, they might try to move into your house. Then try to attack you when you ask them to leave. But that's a story for another time. Reminding me of my dad. I love my dad. Honestly. But I don't want to date him. I once went on a date with a girl who upon learning my credit score said, "Whoa. I'd probably let you me in the ass." Telling them you only wanted to date them because you recognize them from their GW posts. Heavy breathing. Their drinking manners. If they insist I drink, or suggest drinks shots after I've declined multiple times, I'll either think you have a problem, or you're trying to get me drunk. Both of which I don't want. Men who insist you come over, or they come over. I'm all about prolonging a good date. And would love to go to another spot. But I really hate when men invite me over to their place. Or suggest coming to mine at the end of the night. Even worse when they get super pouty when I decline. Being way too touchy. One time I went on a movie date. Mans took out his thing out of nowhere. I was like, woo, there's people and this is our first date. Asking me 0 questions about myself while talking incessantly about themselves. It's alarming how many dudes do this. Why bother going on a date with another human if all you want is to hear yourself talk? Had a first date with a guy from Tinder. He wanted to play the what celebrity do people say you look like game. He told me, Daniel Craig. Oh no. Then I replied, yay, some people have told me Katy Perry but I don't think so. He said, no. You know who you look like. Ben Affleck. I'm a woman BTW. Needless to say, there was no second date. Nothing wrong with being a handsome young woman. If you smack your lips or chew with your mouth open, it's game over. Not sure I could even make it to the end of dinner. For me, during at least some point during a first date, I think hobbies or passions are brought up. I really don't care what hobbies you have. You could be into the dumbest ever. As long as you are into something. Anything. My red flag is when she says she goes to bars and clubs. And thinks that's a hobby. I note the out. They end up being 3 badgers in a trench coat. Anyone who doesn't understand why a first meeting in public is best for women. But then how am I supposed to wear her skin as a jacket next week? If they order shots. I always do brunch as a first date because it places 0 expectation on what happens after. So, if you ordering shots at 11:30 am on a Saturday, we probably aren't going to work out. Children. I wish all the best to all the single parents in the world, but I am not signing up to be a step parent. As a single parent, I respect that you acknowledge this is a deal breaker. I wish people who feel that way would be more upfront. I'm a package deal and that's just not for everybody. That she doesn't accept my raccoon pet named Stuart. Went on a Tinder date where she tried to sell me on her pyramid scheme. Didn't know that was a deal breaker until it happened. Referring to going to the restroom as going make tinkles. I wanted to leave on the spot. Intelligence. If they come off as dumb as a box of rocks, I'm out. I sat next to someone in math class once and after I helped them with a question, they told me they were dumber than an empty box of rocks. He realized what he said immediately after. I think of that every time someone says box of rocks. Back when I was online dating, I was very open and clear about my interests. Biggest deal breaker was spending the whole date being tight about one or more of my interests and somehow expecting that would be 1. Okay. 2. Attractive. At the end of the date, after paying the bill, I just looked across the table and said, look, I'm not really seeing this going anywhere. She got mad. Went all huffy. Said that I must have a problem with fat girls. Girl, I dated bigger women than you and I had no problem with your weight. Close bracket. Then spent the next few hours blowing up my phone and being Thai. Then she even got her mom involved for hurting her daughter. Calling me an asshole and I was like, should I have lead her on for some time? Used her and tossed her out of my life? Pause, that would have been a dick move. TL. Doctor, don't make fun of a prospective date's interest. That's just Thai and unattractive. PS. She was quite cute and if she wasn't so Thai on that date, I would have enjoyed taking her out again. Eating meat. You triggered some animal murderers, lol. Wearing a necklace made up of hair and severed fingers from each of your previous dates. That'll about do it for me. Dude, I've only seen this question like 2 or 3 times, but every time the answers are always the same and I'm guessing it's written by people who never went on a date but saw the same comment with 3k likes on a previous post. Let me guess. Router servers, waitstaff and 100 other basic things? More than 2 arms. People who hide or oversell what they really look like by taking pictures from the shoulders up and listing their body type as a few extra pounds, when in reality they weigh as much as an NFL defensive lineman. Other than that, if they smoke at all or are heavy drinkers, if you're downing 3-4 plus cocktails or beers on a first date, I'm going to sober cab you home and then never call you back. Treating service people poorly. Rude or dismissive to a waiter or bar person. Yeah. It's over before it started. I know the kind of person you are. Trump supporter. Seriously. It means their moral compass is so diametrically opposed to mine. There is 0% chance we would work out. Asking if my job is lucrative. Is your job lucrative? If they're going out with me, that's the deal breaker right there. Shows severe lack of judgment on their part. When they're 70-80 pounds heavier in person. I don't mind curvy girls. But when all your pictures are from when you did CrossFit religiously and then you show up looking like a completely different person, it sets a really bad tone. If you're gonna lie about something that I'll find out literally the first time we meet, how do I trust you? Realizing it's not a date, it's a therapy appointment and you're the therapist. Mouth breathers. Or when they constantly have that foaming piece of saliva at the corners of their mouths. Being more than 30 minutes late, with or without an excuse. If you're going to be that late. First Tinder date with a nice girl. I'm at the bar and she texts me that she's running very late, maybe 45 minutes, and did I want to reschedule? I told her I'd be fine to wait, as I totally randomly came across an acquaintance giving a live performance in the bar above. Over an hour later I met my wife. She's still always late to everything, but we're getting better XD. Smelling bad. I once invited a guy over to watch movies and smoke some bud. As soon as he was in my grid square, all I could smell was this subtle but at times overpowering stench of toilet cleaner. It was like he bathed in it before coming to my place. I couldn't get past the smell regardless of how great he was. I ended up getting my friend to call with a fake emergency so I could get him out of my house and douse my room with incense. Saying I can't stand white people while being white. They smoke. Do I even have to explain? If you're the one carrying the convo. Nothing is worse than when the only responses she has are just completely simple, empty, and dry, while you're forced to just probe with any question you can think of to get her to say something. Hey, so how was your week? Good. Oh, that's good. What do you do for work? HR. Oh. Cool. What's that like? Who for? You probably haven't heard of it. Oh. Alright. Well. What do you do for fun? Just hang out with friends and stuff. Haha, yeah, me too. Where? UHH. Do you all hang out? Just around town and stuff. Science illiteracy. If she's anti-vax, anti-GMO, or climate change denier, then I'm soing out. Guys who make you feel bad about not going home with them. I was really excited to go out with this one guy. Had excitement jitters all day because we had initially hit it off super well. And then the date came around. But I decided not to go home with him because I liked him and wanted to prolong the courting stage a bit longer. Not even 30 seconds after I drove away he sent me on when I asked him why. He started pushing me to turn around and come over to his place. Nope, the out of that one real quick. Third wave feminist. True story. When she says, well, if poor people really wanted to stop being poor, they'd just save their money instead of spending it all. I was already having a bad time. But watching her say that in a serious tone and act like it's common sense made me call her out. Pay for my food. And get out. Later she called me a commie. Lack of reciprocity in terms of conversation. If I ask, what are your hobbies? Then naturally you would ask the same thing. Edit. I'm shocked someone gave me silver. But thank you very much for it. It's my first one. I don't like it when people expect things. Even if I've decided that I'm going to pay for everything. At the very least feign an attempt to pay for yourself. You know? I don't want to feel like the only reason she's there is for free stuff. Seasoning their food without tasting it first is weirdly one of mine. Venting. Like, it's good to vent, but it's our first date, so can we talk about other aspects of your life that are maybe more uplifting topics? The worst is when they vent about how they're constantly rejected and don't realize it's because it's all they talk about and their self-esteem is null. It's just not an appropriate vibe for an introduction to themselves. Fake laughs. If she has kids or wants to have them, I'm out. I want nothing to do with parenthood. Lack of trying. If I see the person is poorly dressed or chose a tight place, I know they're putting the least effort possible. That tells me all I need to know. Or chose a tight place. I mean, I get to avoiding McDonald's, but I'm not going to break the bank taking someone to anything even mildly expensive for a first date. Something modest so that in the case I get ghosted mid-meal or it goes horribly, I don't have an expensive tab on my hands on top of a busted date. Dirty clothes. Not showered. Dirty car. Loud booming voice so everyone can hear your conversation. Bad tipper. I have a loud booming voice. Nothing I can do about that. I have a hearing issues, I can barely hear myself talk. Undiagnosed until recently. When they try to constantly turn the conversation back to Essex. If she were a Nazi, that would kinda bum me out. They spend the whole time bragging about all the murders they've gotten away with and never bother to even ask you about the murders you've gotten away with. Snobs about interests. I understand you might love 1950s jazz deep cuts, but that doesn't make me an idiot because I like Jennifer Lopez. Why has no one mentioned they litter? Flat earther believer. Anti-vaxxer. Rude to staff. Tries too hard to look quirky or talks like an anime character. Also waterboarding conversationalist. Like you have to torture them to hold a conversation. Women and their functioning mammary glands. There, I made it safe again. Constant forced sexual advances. I can't stand a date constantly giving me thirsty looks or makes sexual gestures. Don't do crack with me in the parking lot after. Pants sting. Asking them if they have heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise. If they start murdering people without consent. Total deal breaker. Constantly referring to everything as farbomb.com. Thanks, I'll pass. Homophobia. Xenophobia. Racism. Transphobia or any type of intolerance to different people is mine. Not everything is worthy of tolerance. List the things about me that they like in such a way that it becomes clear I'm a fetish item for them as opposed to a person. I'm a nerdy busty redhead who wears glasses and has tattoos. The boys who talk the most about how I tick all their boxes are the ones most likely to not listen to a goddamn thing I say. Or worse. Actively get mad at me when I deviate from their fantasy by being a real person. They don't want to actually talk about Batman with me. They just want to talk about how awesome it is that I like to talk about Batman, which is a very short conversation and frankly, not that interesting. They also tend to get mad when I actually know more about Batman than they do. Whipping out a cigarette. What if I puree it out? When they're actually 30 squirrels in a trench coat. Man, we graduated from 3 badges to 30 squirrels. If they take a drink and then make that long satisfied noise after every gulp. Thank you. Comma. Them not being my wife. Nonchalant racism. Sism. Makes any kind of discriminatory comments. Sloppy table manners. I've shared this recently. But one time I was out on a first date with this girl I met online. I thought she was very attractive and we seemed to hit off well through texts. We're at this bar and she suggests we play a people watching game where we try to make up backstories for the other people there. I thought it sounded fun. Especially since I played a similar game with friends on the train sometimes. Plus it felt like a good icebreaker to get us talking. Well, she managed to take all the fun out the game by being ridiculously cruel in all her assumptions for no real reason at all. It felt like she was projecting issues she had onto these people. Like one guy was sitting at the bar alone. Could have been waiting for someone. You never know. But because he was alone, he was a wine loser with no friends that hates his life. Completely killed the mood and I lost interest in her after that. Couldn't see myself going on a second date with someone like that. Asking this goddamn question weekly instead of just using search. Reddit search bar is purely decorative. If they post this question and its variants to ask Reddit. Talking with food in mouth. Loud chewing. MAGA hat. I'm a Trump supporter. But I'd never wear my MAGA hat on a date. Complimenting me by trashing my entire gender. You really know your. I've never met a female who knew so much about politics. Yeah bud. You sure have, you just didn't listen. In my city, and I assume many others, there are groups of men who are referred to pick-up artists. They often do what they call the day game, which involves picking up women during the day. On the occasions it has happened to me, it has always been in the same area in the CBD. Each occasion has been eerily similar. They approach me and say something like, "Hey, I never do this, but I just wanted to come and tell you that I think you're really beautiful." They then proceed to ask for your number. I have always declined because I know about these games. Apparently, after the interaction they report to their coach and are praised, possibly even given points, if they score the girl's number. There was a list leaked somewhat recently from their group which detailed the best places to pick up. Even as far as giving weirdly gross details like the women here are likely to be young and insecure. Long story short, these interactions are deal breakers for me.